Well, it's an absolutely beautiful day today, and we're on our way up to Heber, Utah. Heber's up in the mountains, up in the Wasatch Mountains. It's just a beautiful little town, and it's best known for its scenic railroad. They have a fabulous scenic railroad that has one and sometimes two operating steam locomotives. Today, they don't have any operating steam locomotives. The two they have are both torn down right now for rebuilding. And anyway, that's not what takes us up there. They also have a wing of the CAF, the Commemorative Air Force, and they have some pretty cool planes, and we're going to check that out. But the bigger thing is they have some friends visiting from Arizona with their B-25 called the Maid in the Shade, and we're going to go check that out. It should be a gas. The Utah wing of the CAF is located here at the Heber Airport. This is one of their T6s. They have a couple of these things. This one's kind of torn down right now. They have a lot of really cool things in their collection here at Heber. Several different airplanes. These are airplane engines. This is an Allison engine. If you remember from the Ethel Graham episode, this is the engine that he shoved in his car. This is another aircraft engine. These things cost a lot of money, and so they bag these engines whenever they can, because you just never know. If nothing else, they might make good trading fodder. This is a Stearman biplane. This looks really old, but it's actually World War II vintage. They used these as trainers, and lots of them survived because they were used as crop dusters after the war. Now, this interesting airplane is a PV-2. They started off in life as an Army bomber, but they just never quite worked out in that role. And then the Navy got a hold of some of them and said, gee, if we could keep the wings from falling off, these would really be great patrol airplanes. So they did a little reworking on them, and then they built about 500 of them to go out and hunt for submarines. Back then, hunting submarines was a little bit easier because the things couldn't stay submerged for all that long, and they'd be on the surface, and if you had an airplane, you could come by and spot them. They put windows in the bottom of this airplane so that the crew could look down, you see the windows here, and they could see the submarines below them. It's a pretty cool little airplane. But the big deal today is this B-25 that's visiting from Arizona. They're giving rides, or I should say selling rides, because they're a little bit expensive. But they're here in Heber, and it's the two wings of the CAF. These two wings hang out together quite a bit. They consider themselves sister wings. You can see by the nose art here that this plane is called Maid in the Shade. If you remember from the Ed Roth episodes, these graphics found their way right straight out of the Army Air Corps and onto hot rods. The same people just went right on painting the same old things, this time on their hot rods. The guys who fly this airplane around the country are certainly having a good time.
Oh, I enjoy this. I am now been here about 15 years. But I didn't start out as a pilot. I intended to start out as a pilot, but I ended up being a loadmaster and then went on to be a crew chief on the B-17, and then eventually they said, why don't you start flying? I'm a former airline guy, so and I'm a retired colonel in the United States Air Force, so you know, aviation's in my blood. My grandfather was in World War I in the 27th Aero Squadron, and my father was in the 314th Fighter Squadron in World War II, flying P-47s, so I'm third generation. So it was kind of in my blood whether I liked it or not. And yes, it is fun. It's wonderful out here. We're one of the few rare non-profit organizations that try to preserve all the airplanes to be used as flying museums and taking them to places where they don't have aviation museums. Say Heber, the Utah CAF has a small museum up here, but then they don't have these bigger airplanes. 2 years ago I was here with the B-17, so it's these small towns that people like to see these airplanes. Now obviously some of the bigger towns also don't have museums, and so we take them in there, and of course it's a historical thing that young kids today don't learn about. And so when we talk about World War II, we talk about Korea, then there's times where, they ask the question, so well, what happened? Well, the whole world was at war during those days, and we had to protect ourselves and protect the freedom of other countries at the same time. So these flying museums is the only way you can do that in some ways, unless you go to Washington, D.C. and go to the museums, or the Dayton, Ohio, go to the Air Force Museum, where you can see some of these airplanes. But until you see them, you don't know for sure whether or not this stuff has ever really happened. So now, it's our opportunity to show the young people that it has happened.
There were almost 10,000 of these airplanes built during World War II, and they found themselves all over the place, but they mostly were used in the Pacific for island hopping. Their most famous mission came when some of them were launched from an aircraft carrier and bombed Tokyo, and then crash-landed in China, the famous Doolittle raid over Tokyo. They're a little bit smaller than the three great big airplanes that served in World War II. There were a lot of these smaller bombers, a little more versatile than the great big ones, and still quite capable of doing lethal damage on a target. And just like the big airplanes, they're really, really attractive. I don't know what it is about planes from this era, but they're just cool. And it's great that groups like the CAF are out there preserving these things so that we can see them. Such an incredible piece of history, and somehow that history just doesn't seem real if you can't see these artifacts of it, just like they were when they were in use, out there doing what they do. But let's also not forget that the real prime motivator in all of this is to screw around and have a really good time. And good heck, what could be funner than having your own World War II vintage airplane that you can take care of and fix up, and never mind go out and fly? Keep in mind that the CAF is just a collection of people just like you and me. They get together and they fix up these airplanes. And what that means is you can find a group near you and join them. If this is something that you find really exciting, well, go do it. Join the CAF. Well, there you go, the absolutely beautiful little community of Heber, Utah. There's a lot of just fun screwing around that goes on up at Heber. So we will be finding our way back there periodically to check out cool stuff, including the railroad. Do pop over to the YouTube channel. That would be Toyman Television, or you could go to the website, toymantelevision.com, and from there you can go back to the channel, and you can go to the Facebook page, and you can like the Facebook page. While you're over on the channel, do subscribe to the channel. Also, a blue button will appear right in here any second that says subscribe, and you can just click on that little guy, and that will take you to the channel and subscribe you. One-stop shopping with the little blue button right up here. I'm not sure how you found this movie on the internet. I sure as heck hope you didn't find it boring. And I'll see you here again in exactly 1 week with some more significant screwing around. I'll see you then. Bye.